Hey guys, it's Marcy,
And it's Marty.
and we have our special guest, Guy Felicella.
Hey everybody, my name is Guy Felicella, and I'm the peer clinical advisor of the BC Center on Substance Use.
Yeah, so welcome to our Altered State of Mind. Today we're going to be talking about some safe injection sites in Vancouver, the opioid crisis in Vancouver, and some about the magic mushroom market, and a little bit about Guy himself. So with safe injection sites, is there multiple across Vancouver, or is there just one downtown?
No, well, there's many supervised consumption sites in the province of British Columbia. But however, the first one, which was North America's actual first supervised consumption site, was in 2003, which is in the downtown east side of Vancouver. And it was brought on, obviously, in the 90s. There was a dueling public health emergency as well, which was the HIV/AIDS crisis, and there was also an overdose crisis in the 90s. And so Insight was brought on in 2003 to support people who use substances, and these sites have definitely changed the direction of people's lives, and also health complications such as hepatitis C, HIV, and overdose. And there has never ever been a death at any supervised consumption site worldwide. So it's actually a heavily evidence-based harm reduction measure that allows people to use under supervision, just in case they do overdose and die.
Mm-hmm. And they're meant for preventing and transmitting stuff like HIV and AIDS, right?
Yeah, very, very much so, and other other health complications from using outside or using in back alleys or under bridges. It's and it also as well. While you're using at these facilities, you're exempt from being arrested as well. For using those substances. You actually can't even be arrested if you're on the same block area of the supervised consumption site and going to use the facility. If you were pulled over by police, you can actually challenge that by saying that you're using the facility with the substances if the police were to stop you before you walk in there.
I have a question to ask about. I heard you in your TED talk about how the safe injection sites can help people get off the drugs. Would you mind elaborating more on that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the great thing about the supervised consumption site downtown is that it has the bottom floor, which is the supervised injection site, and then on the second floor it has the detox floor, and then on the third floor it has a recovery transition floor. And so, it's actually, when you think about the concept of a supervised consumption site and building a relationship with an individual, you don't build that relationship when people are using alone or by themselves. But however, when they use those facilities, and like myself, many times that I've walked in there, there's nursing there, there's staff there, there was wound care there. If you were, you had some injuries, and that started the conversation towards me, actually getting off those substances. And so going there, building a relationship, trust is very important. And when I was ready, I'd go for support and ask to get upstairs to the detox floor, and that's how my journey started. And so if that facility didn't exist, overdosing there, being brought back to life 6 times.
Really?
Not I wouldn't exist, my recovery wouldn't exist, my children wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have the life that I have today. So it's a very powerful place that does and can change the direction of people's lives.
That's great. But they don't supply any of the substances, right? Do you bring your own? to the safe injection site, right?
Yeah, so that used to be true, yes, but now they've actually started a pilot project out of the supervised consumption site where they can offer people a safer alternative to the illicit drug market, such as dilaudid or hydromorphone. So there are a select amount of people that are using the facility right now that can access safer substances through that facility now.
And this has only been like recently, right? Where they gave out a safe supply?
Yes, that's very correct.
That's okay. And then it definitely reduces the number of overdoses, correct? Right.
Well, I mean, what it does do is it allows people to know what they're consuming because, when you buy from the illicit drug market, people know that it's fentanyl, but they don't know how powerful the dose is or if it has any other additives in there, such as benzodiazepines, which, can be deadly in itself as well. And so what it does do is it gives people the knowledge of knowing what exactly they're using. And so when you empower somebody to know exactly what they're taking, it helps them make an informed decision of how much they should use. It's kind of like if you walked into a liquor store buying a beer that you suspect would be 5%, and all of a sudden you drink it and it's like 80%. That's the difference between with the illicit market and a regulated market, is that you know what you're consuming, right?
Yeah, but with a regulated market, is there a possibility that you could like you could overdose on a safe supply?
Well, I think with anything, it's like anybody can overdose on anything. It's like if you exceed the daily amount of what the prescription is, then obviously there's going to be risks for anybody involved. But the good thing about anything is actually knowing what you're consuming. And so, but there is no data saying that people aren't dying from prescription meds. People are dying from the illicit supply, and actually more people are dying from illicit drugs than car crashes, homicides, suicides, and prescription medications.
More deaths than COVID.
More deaths than COVID as of when it was last summer, but like overall for the last from 2011 to 2021 is what I stated. Car crashes, homicides, and suicides, and prescription meds combined.
Yeah. We searched up how many deaths there were in 2021, and there are 2,224 deaths in 2021, meaning there's like 6 deaths a day, and I bet a lot of them come from East Hastings.
Well, no, I mean, like construction, out of employed people, 1/5 of the overdoses are coming from construction workers. So it's not just an issue in the downtown east side. It's in every community. It's in your community. It could actually be right next door. The majority of people, over 80% of people who are dying die alone in residences, but 54% of those, or over 50% of them, are dying in private residence. So that's a house just like you're in right now.
Do you think that people dying alone or in their own homes, could their deaths be from like safe supplies, or is that all illegal market?
Yeah, the data shows that it's the illicit drug market. So, like I said, there is no evidence saying that anybody's overdosing, dying from prescription drugs. They're dying from illicit drugs.
Yeah. Would you like to change over to the magic mushroom market that's recently been popping up in Vancouver?
Yeah, for sure.
So I've read a couple research studies, and it says like that a trip on magic mushrooms can actually change the addictive state of mind or behavior.
Yeah, no, I've seen data and research supporting this, although For myself, I think in our society, people need a multitude of options. And if magic mushrooms help somebody, stop using, the illicit drugs, or, transitioning to those substances. There's a lot of people who do microdosing of magic mushrooms, and saying that there's some extreme benefits, not only to their stress levels, but their mental health levels. And so I guess taken in those certain circumstances have been really beneficial to a lot of people. And so, anything to steer people from dying of illicit drug toxicity is a good thing.
Yeah. I would like to ask, actually, do you think the mushrooms blowing up kind of is a good thing, or do you think it's bad?
Well, I think you have to remember that people in our society use substances, and so I know there's a lot of health benefits from people using mushrooms, especially people who struggle with pain and mental health. And if you think about it too, they're probably in some circumstances a lot better than the mental health medications that are given from doctors. A lot safer anyway. So some people just have a hard time with the mental health psych meds that are given. They just don't make people feel like somewhat normal. And if mushrooms makes people feel normal and able to function through life, then I think anything needs to be looked at, especially in this day and age. And mushrooms have been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. And sure, if you when I was younger as a kid, I used to take them, and they were something that really made me feel somewhat in control of the uncontrollable life. And so if they help with, there is benefits for mushrooms to help people with depression and anxiety. And so when you look at that in our society, that's probably one of the two biggest things that are happening right now with a lot of people is they're struggling with that depression and anxiety. And if mushrooms is able to alleviate that, then, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So, for the people that use mushrooms, it's been easier for them to get them recently because the VPD has been focusing more on the opioid crisis and leaning away from the magic mushroom market, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you look at, mushrooms, they grow on people's lawns. Yeah. You can, now, I think people are realizing, and, there's enough research and evidence out there to support the health benefits of magic mushrooms. And so, I think when you actually look at the benefits against weighing the consequences of it, then, if the benefits outweigh the consequences, then it's something that, I know is supported, especially, throughout Vancouver, but throughout the province and Canada. I know that even there's some people who were, struggling with pain were able to access magic mushrooms as well. So those are all good things that are starting to happen.
One thing I've noticed is that the magic mushroom market, it's seeming kind of similar to how marijuana was before it was legalized. Do you see legalization in the future for it?
I do. I definitely do. Yeah. Just like cannabis, and hopefully with other substances as well. I think we have to look at everything right now, because what we're doing is not working. When 6 people die every day in this province, and over 20 people die every day in Canada, we have to look at doing something different, because when we've regulated substances before. Look at alcohol, look at tobacco, look at cannabis. And when alcohol was prohibited, it didn't stop people from drinking. It just drove it underground. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening with the illicit drug supply right now, is that it's been prohibited for so long. So it drives it underground, and that's the shame and the stigma that goes along with using those substances. So people use alone, and sadly they're dying because of it, which is all created by prohibition. And so when you actually think about it, it creates this stigma that's in our society of how we view people who use substances. And sadly, stigma has become just as deadly as the drugs themselves.
Mm-hmm. So, moving away from magic mushrooms, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with substance use in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with a lot of anxiety and depression and undiagnosed learning disabilities as a kid, and I started using illicit drugs at the age of 12, and got involved with gangs and juvenile detention, and spent a lot of my youth in juvenile detention, and the drugs got harder, and I fell into the downtown east side at a very early age, and stayed down there for decades, and struggled with underlying issues of trauma that I struggled with as a kid, and that led to more higher powerful drugs, and I had to survive the first dueling public health emergencies, which was in the 90s, which was around before you guys were born. I had to survive 20 years of being homeless. I had to survive, decades in prison. I had to survive, 5 osteomyelitis bone infections, 4 in my left leg, 1 in my back. I had to survive those 6 overdoses where I had to be brought back to life 6 times in a 9-month time frame from 2012 to 2013 when fentanyl was brought on the streets. So, I struggled immensely, and and not just that, but I also faced the backlash from people in society who viewed me as a piece of garbage and disposable. And back in the day, if you supported harm reduction, especially in the late 80s and early 90s, you were branded a criminal.
Really?
And so, I'd been arrested for just having drug paraphernalia and put in prison for it. That's not having any drugs. Just to have a pipe in your hand can put you in prison.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot and struggled with a lot, and in the end, I realized that my last overdose, which was February 18th, 2013, that after I was brought back to life by a nurse and looked over at her when I woke up, and she had tears in her eyes, and I just said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "Because I care." And I started to cry myself, and it was a short time after that. I just knew that if I didn't do something different, I was either going to die in my addiction or I was going to die trying to get out. And so, I battled to get out, and for me, I was successful through finding out that I did have learning disability as a kid, and then I did struggle with trauma, and I got trauma therapy, and my life started to, seemingly get better. Met my wife, and the rest is really history.
Mm-hmm. Well, good for you.
Thanks, guys.
It's because we at Churchill we have had someone overdose, and it's so sad seeing someone go at such an early age. But you going through what, 30 years?
Yeah, I stopped using substances at the age of 43. So basically, from the time that I was 12 till 43, I was using drugs.
And now life's happy.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. I tell you right now. Who says you can't be homeless for 20 years and own your own home one day, or who says you can't, turn your life around and pick it up and inspire others to do the same? And I have a really good life, and I have a supportive family, and I have my beautiful kids and great job, and I enjoy public speaking and speaking to sharing my story into schools and to inspire others that no matter how far we fall down, getting up is mandatory, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any questions, Micah?
I would just like to say, your story really is inspiring, and I really want to share it with everybody. I want everybody to hear this, just to know, you can get out of it.
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to look at it in a way that, if you support people, people get better. If you punish them, then people isolate. And so the difference was, in the end, is that more people supported me than punished me. obviously, anybody that develops an addiction or a substance use disorder, the majority of people struggle with trauma. And so that's the underlying issue behind the drugs. So oftentimes, we look at the substance, but we don't understand the story of a person. So always understand the story, because then you'll understand why people would use substances for the majority of people who are struggling with, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse their whole life. You'd understand why they would use substances, because, it numbs that pain, especially the emotional pain, and gave me the ability to actually feel, like somewhat normal. Because if I did, it was interesting, because when I found those drugs at a young age, those drugs saved my life, because if I didn't find them, I would have probably ended my life. But the one reality of those substances, which is at the end of my life, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to end my life. And when you see that, you become at a crossroad. And for me, it was the trauma therapy that really gave me the ability to understand my relationship with the drugs. And once I understood that, I was able to get off the drugs. And so life's been amazing since then.
Okay, that's great. Do you have any last words before we wrap up our voicer for today?
I just really, want to say to you guys, I appreciate you guys coming from youth in our society. I think, that's a big thing for people to understand. It's good to see you guys getting involved and doing these types of things to bring awareness to not only your classmates and your teachers, but also to inspire a generation that there is help, and that you can get out, and that there is support, and to never give up. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this. I hope you've learned something, or you can take something out of it. Spread awareness, or share it with someone that means something to you. Now, if you were interested in this topic or want to learn more, please check out our podcast, Altered State of Mind. Episodes coming out soon.